The unrest and widespread looting in July saw more than 100 schools being vandalized, which delayed the resumption of classes in some areas. Add the COVID-19 pandemic to that, with limited teaching time, and it spells disaster for adequate learning, especially for matriculants. So just how prepared is the class of 2021, particularly in Gauteng and KZN? Let's find out from our reporters, Masego Rahlaga and Lethiwe Mdluli. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Masego, let's start with you in Gauteng. How prepared are the matriculants of 2021, and how did the unrest we saw in July throw a spanner in the works?
Well, Tafuma, I'm in an area called Mamelodi in the east of Pretoria. And earlier on, we started at a school where they managed to get 100% pass rate even when the pandemic began to be a challenge in South Africa, this being the 2020 class. They were actually one of the schools in their district to have performed as well as they did, even with that challenge of at some point pupils not being able to get physical class time for about 5 months. Let me speak to Oratile. She's a pupil at Vugani Secondary School, and she'll be speaking to us. She's a top achiever, as you can see with the badge on her tie. Oratile, are you nervous at all? How did your prelims go in preparation for your finals? And are you nervous about what's to come?
No, I'm not nervous about what's to come because we've been getting enough help from our teachers, our educators, and the C classes also have been helping us a lot with during the weekend when we need help. Because in school we just get taught the new chapter, but when we go to C classes we get to understand more and given more advice on how to answer the questions and all that. Yeah.
So basically this year has been difficult for you, but also last year as a grade 11 pupil, that is also a very important year for you.
Yeah.
So you've been disrupted not just for 1 year, but for 2 years.
Yeah.
How have you managed to cope with anxiety, etc.?
Yeah, I've been able to cope with anxiety and all that because firstly at school we have our teachers who also become our mentors. So they actually help us to become more relaxed with our schoolwork and help us also to achieve the goals that we want to reach. Yeah.
All right, Oratile, good luck, eh? Good luck for your finals. So let me speak to one of the teachers here at Vugani Mawetu Secondary School. Sir, difficult past 2 years education-wise. We heard the Minister of Education talking about how many days of learning these pupils have lost, but they really are resilient. How are you finding them in class?
Thank you for your question. What I like about the learners that I teach in the school is that they are determined, they are willing to go an extra mile, and that makes the whole job for us to become very, very easy. Because whenever we need them, if it's Saturdays or after schools, they're always there. Yeah.
Just tell me very quickly, as a teacher, I'm sure you also go through your own anxiety. Teachers are also judged by how many of their pupils pass. Do you have any anxiety?
Having the learners that I have, I don't have any anxiety. What I tell them is that you shouldn't look what is happening on the outside. They should concentrate on themselves. They know their capabilities, and I always make sure that I support them in every way I can so that they can reach their potential.
Just very quickly, Tafuma, if you could just give me another 3 minutes of your time with the principal of the school, sir. How has the school been able to perform last year, and how are you hoping to improve that this year, even during what's been happening with COVID-19?
Thanks very much for that question. What we usually do, we have system in place. At the beginning of the year, we'll convene a meeting where we interact with parents and we encourage them to take care of the kids at home so that these learners will be able to work on their own. And we also encourage them on a regular basis to remain behind and study. Remember, within the school, we've got plans, as I've already indicated. One key thing is that our learners at the beginning of the year, they will be attending morning lessons. And even in the afternoon, they'll be remaining behind. We also encourage them to attend the SIP classes because they are extremely very, very helpful. On the other hand, just our neighboring school, we've got a project which is known as Kutlwano, which is extremely helpful, particularly to maths and science learners. So on a regular basis, our learners are prepared, and because with our target, year in, year out, is 100%. So even if we are unable to get the 100%, but we can settle around 90%. So that's what we usually do. Now, for this year, what are we intending to do and how prepared are we? I think our learners are ready because they've been attending throughout the year. They've been availing themselves during the day, during early in the morning, during weekends, and we do motivate them. And even the type of teachers we have, they are able to walk an extra mile, ensuring that our learners can be able to do well in their coming matric.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Of course, Tafuma, I wanted to give you the perspectives of everybody. That's why I tried to give you those 3 interviews, something from the pupil who says she's ready, the teacher who says he is not fearful of the marks that comes out from his class because he believes in his pupils, and of course the principal who's in charge of the entire school and making sure that the school is able to at least get a 90% pass rate.
It seems Vugani Mawetu Secondary School is ready. It's a story that gives me hope for that class of 2021. Masego Rahlaga, thank you so much for that. Let's go to KZN now. Lethiwe Mdluli, what is the situation on the ground where you are?
Well, there are a lot of problems that the province is currently dealing with. It's not only just COVID-19 that has affected school teaching and learning in the schools across the province. We are currently dealing with a shortage of teachers, and that problem has been ongoing in the country or in the province for a couple of years, where unions have raised these issues and they are basically calling for the Departments of Basic Education to do something about it. Now, the Departments of Education in the province has said that their hands are tied because of the budget cuts that they've experienced this year because of COVID-19. Their budget was cut of 6 billion rand. So that has affected them in filling vacant posts, and that obviously has affected teaching and learning and the quality of education that matriculants and other learners are receiving in schools. But at the moment, I'm joined by Mlungisi Ndlovu, who's from the PSA, one of the unions that has been very vocal about the problems that the province is experiencing. My first question for you would have to be, how has teaching and learning been affected by COVID-19 so far in the province?
So the COVID-19 presented a lot of challenges and opportunities. You'll appreciate that most of the schools, they were not equipped with for e-learning. And if you look at the infrastructure is very bad in other schools, especially in villages. As a result, it has huge impact in terms of education and learning. And most of the concerns for us as PSA in KwaZulu-Natal is that you've got over 4,000 positions that are not being filled. It has huge impact in terms of quality in education and learning. The budget cut of 6.3 billion. So it is for these reasons that we are calling for provincial treasurer to say they must do something, because you cannot cut budget on education. And the other challenge is that if you look at the learners that were in grade 11, they could not complete some of their subjects. It has to be rolled over for 2021. As a result, there was a lot of overwork for educators. Some of educators have died in the process. They are being frustrated. The infrastructure is so bad. The overcrowding is also a challenging. It is for this reason that we are saying, if you want to improve the education, you must deal with the issues of human capital. You must make sure that you equip all the schools. Most of the schools that were advantaged are those schools, formerly white schools, that were able to benefit from e-learning. It is for this reason that we support the MEC's call to say you cannot retrench 4,000 educators. If you retrench educators, which means you're cutting off the future of this country. It is for this reason when we're saying something needs to be done, the technology needs to be improved in all the schools, especially in villages.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So those are some of the problems that KZN is dealing with: shortage of teachers and the infrastructure problems. I remember a few weeks ago I visited a school, and that school was dealing with a lot of infrastructure problems. They didn't have the right roof, and also the doors and the windows were affected. And that meant that a lot of pupils in that school, it was actually Mayville Primary School, a lot of learners could not go to school when it's raining. So there's a lot of problems that are facing the Departments of Education in the province. And of course, we've had our budget cuts by 6 billion. So the unions are calling for something to happen. And of course, the Departments of Education is saying that they will be looking to National Treasury to kind of fix these problems moving forward.
teacher shortages on top of COVID-19 and the July unrest that we saw. So it's definitely a worrying situation in KZN. Lethiwe Mdluli, thank you so much for your time. Masego Rahlaga took us to Vuganimawetu Secondary School in Pretoria, where there is a story of hope. It's a school that seems prepared. Ladies, we thank you for that. Let's now move to Cape Town. We cross to our reporter Ayesha Ismail, who is in the Western Cape. Ayesha, we've seen contrasting stories from Gauteng and from KZN. What's the situation on the ground in the Western Cape?
Well, I visited a few schools this morning speaking to pupils who are in matric this year. Of course, they all acknowledge that this is a difficult year for them. And I'm now at the Steenberg High School, where I'm going to be speaking to twins who are writing their matric exam today. And Bilkis and Kothar, you were telling me earlier today that while you are ready for the matric exams, it's been a difficult year.
Yes. So one of the very difficult things of this year is that we have been compared to matriculants under different circumstances than ourselves. So COVID-19 has really placed pressure on us to perform at a greater level in order to make our parents and our teachers proud. I can actually totally agree with Bilkis, but what has most affected us as students this year is the fact that our teachers have been placed under tremendous amounts of stress, and that has impacted on the quality of education that we have received. And I think that if COVID hadn't come along, maybe our matric year would have been easier.
How did you cope with the online learning?
I think one of the most important things for online learning was to teach ourselves to be disciplined, and we had to also support our fellow class members to check up on them and see, are you coping as well? So support was one of the biggest things in online learning for us. I think that a lot of our learners had a disadvantage actually with online learning. Although our government would have thought that it would have helped us, a lot of people didn't have internet connections, didn't have data, and were unable to complete assignments, do tests online. So I think going further into the future, what would definitely help is to help our disadvantaged learners to have that financial stability, to be able to afford online learning.
Thank you so much for your time, Kothar and Bilkis. And I'm just going to talk to the senior educator here at Steenberg High School, because the matriculants the matric students that I spoke to were talking about support being given by the teachers. Mr. Messias, again, it's been a difficult year. From a teacher's point of view, how have the teachers been coping?
We have tried our best. We have been a team of teachers who've been at the school for a long time, so we're known to be together, to stand as a team, but COVID threw us as a curved ball and we never expected it. We also were hoping last year that 2021 would be better, but then it came along and it kind of knocked us off, because suddenly I myself contracted COVID, a few colleagues we lost a teacher in this battle. So for us it's been emotionally, physically, mentally, it's been a torment. So we do our best on a daily basis. It's just good to see that we are still part of a team. But when somebody goes down with COVID, there's so much of trauma and worry. So the battle is kind of for us with our learners to face it in a community where we've already been battling with poverty, with lots of retrenchments, with loss of jobs. And then when suddenly you realize there's very little left, we're trying to really keep the fire burning, keep these kids afloat, so that our dropout levels and the kids on the street cannot increase. We have to do so much more to try and motivate youngsters who I understand are not getting what they really need. So their social life has been impacted so tremendously that they don't actually know their identity has taken its toll here. So we are hoping that even if COVID comes to some stop, that we can recover and regain and try and just get our senses back of living a life that they deserve. And already in the community, battling with crime, battling with gangsterism and drug addiction, we try and get them back to the school, but we can't even have them on a daily basis. So for us as a teaching corps, it is a huge battle. It is, like one can say, we've never been here before, so there is no text we can follow. We don't know how to move forward, and yet we must keep the ship afloat. We must keep fighting, keep saying we are strong enough, and that comes with prayer on a daily basis. So Ayesha, I think we are challenged in our communities, whether you're on this side of the line or that side of the line. Like you know, the challenges are different, but the challenges are real. And for us, just to find a kid who doesn't have bread, we try and pull together to go in there. They need electricity. Sometimes we have to just take it from your pocket. You become nurse, counselor, we become preacher, we become support system. We just have to be a lawyer sometimes to try and say, go this way, make this decision, do this, because sometimes our kids need us to know that there's a social worker involved. Then other abuses that they face in their homes, we've got to fill in the right forms, follow protocol, but we must be there. And slowly, the core is breaking down. Soon we'll be leaving. Many of us are already in the 60s, so we'll be gone.
Thank you so much for your time. And despite all these challenges, it's amazing just talking to matric students. They are serious, they are determined to complete this year, 2021, successfully.
Yeah, that teacher you just spoke to, Ayesha, really spelt out the challenges brilliantly for us. And it's been a tough year, but I was very happy to see that the twins still at least seem upbeat despite all of those challenges. Ayesha Ismail, thank you so much for that. She's at Steenberg High School. We'll be back right after this.